Hey, I'm Dazzling One, and today I want to talk about the fascinating topic of time travel. So many books have been written on this subject. Within science fiction, it was made popular by British author H.G. Wells in 1895. He wrote a book called The Time Machine. Since then, many have taken the idea and ran with it, and Einstein even proposed a theory that could potentially leave an explanation for time travel. That was the theory of general relativity, which in it stated the laws of physics are the same for all non-accelerating observers, and he showed that the speed of light within a vacuum is the same no matter the speed of which an observer travels. So, say you have a friend, and you were keeping in touch while you were leaving Earth from a rocket to outer space. Say you traveled with a clock, and your friend stayed on Earth. Although to you, a year and a half would have gone by, since you were gone, by the time you returned, 50 years would have gone by for them. And you would have only aged a year and a half, while they would have aged 50 years. The reason for this explanation is because you were moving faster, which time, when you move faster, actually moves slower for you. Whereas for your friend who is moving slower, time actually moves faster for them. This is also known as time dilation. The interesting thing is that when scientists use particle accelerators, those particles that had been moved faster versus those that had moved slower took longer to decay or age. One question would be, if time travel were possible, how would such a feat be done? Cosmic strings were introduced by J. Richard Gott in the year 1991, which basically are string objects believed to have been formed sometime in the early stages of the universe. They weave throughout the entire universe and are thinner than an atom under pressure, and have a gravitational pull on anything that comes into contact, which allows objects attached to them to travel at a certain speed, causing time dilation. Basically, by pulling them closer or stretching the cosmic strings, it is believed this could make time travel possible by pulling it closer to a black hole or by warping space and time, creating a time-wide curve. In 1935, physicists Albert Einstein and Nathan Rosen used the theory of general relativity to propose the existence of bridges through space and time called Einstein's Rosen bridge, or wormholes. Wormholes, on the other hand, in this sense, by dictionary definition, is a hypothetical connection between widely separated regions of space and time. It's more theoretical. There is no solid proof they existed, although personally I believe they do, considering experience I had a couple years back, which I talked about in the past video, of when I was up one late night with my sister and I actually looked up and I saw what they usually wormholes are depicted. It was swirly, circular. It happened so quickly. And after that, I began to experience encounters or paranormal activity with fallen angels. And I talked about that in my Fallen Angel Hollow Earth video. Not that I'm saying to use my experiences to validate the existence, but I do believe personally, based on what I experienced, they exist. But could the same thing be said for time? That one could use a wormhole as a vehicle to move between times rather than just dimensions. And then that raises the question of, is space and time in its own realm or dimension, or is it all synonymous? It is believed wormholes bring with them the dangers of sudden collapse, high radiation, and dangerous contact with exotic matter. Since the wormholes would connect two different points, it would reduce travel time and distance. Wormholes contain two mouths with a throat connecting the two. The mouths would most likely be spheroidal. The throat might be a straight stretch, but it could also wind around, taking a longer path than a more conventional route might require. Some problems suggested with the theory of traveling through wormholes, which have become popular through the years in science fiction, oppose the time machine, besides the fact that they haven't yet to be discovered, is the size of it. The problem with the size is primordial wormholes are predicted to exist on microscopic levels, about 10 to 33 centimeters. However, as the universe expands, it is possible that some may have been stretched to larger sizes. Another problem comes from stability. They predicted Einstein's Rosen wormholes would be useless for travel because they would collapse quickly, but more recent research found that a wormhole containing exotic matter could stay open and unchanging for longer periods of time. Einstein's theory of general relativity mathematically predicts the existence of wormholes, but none have been discovered to date. A negative mass wormhole might be spotted by the way its gravity affects light that passes by. Another interesting thing, considering Einstein was one of the first to say that black holes aren't just swallowing up cosmic bodies, but they're actually leading to other dimensions that could be used for time travel, is in the 1960s, the New Zealand mathematician Roy Kerr found that things are different in the black hole when it's rotating. A singularity still forms, but in the form of a ring, like the mint with a hole. In principle, it would be possible to dive into such a black hole and through the ring to emerge in another place and another time. This Kerr solution was the first mathematical example of a time machine, but all the time nobody took it seriously. At the time, hardly anybody took the idea of black holes seriously, and an interest in the Kerr solution only really developed in the 1970s after astronomers discovered what seemed to be real black holes, both in our own Milky Way galaxy and in the hearts of our other galaxies. Also, in a simulation, researchers examined the behavior of a photon traveling through space and time interacting with its older self. In their experiment, they made use of the closely related fictitious case where the photon travels through normal space, time, and interacts with another photon that is stuck in a time-traveling wormhole, known as a closed time-like curve. Simulating the behavior of this second photon, they were able to study the behavior of the first, and the results show that consistent evolutions can be achieved when preparing the second photon in just the right way. By definition, quantum refers to the smallest possible particles that can independently exist, such as photons. However, for macroscopic systems, time travel still faces problematic paradoxes. An interesting ideal of time travel is through the use of mind, such as astral projection or remote viewing or clairvoyance. This is a New Age and occult concept, and I strongly warn against these methods because when you do these, you can open yourself up to demons, since they will jump at a chance to potentially possess your body. This is a mental time travel of sorts, so while your body is still there, your mind is not. Usually people do this by way of meditation, first by using a place or objects that they focus on, and then from there they use it to travel mentally to where they want to go until they come back. What is interesting is scientific experiments has proven that your mind has difficulty determining the difference between what is imagined and what is experienced. For example, have you ever randomly had an embarrassing moment that you remember and you feel like you're reliving it? You even forget that where you're sitting or where you're standing, and you can feel the nervous sweat you had and the same physiological effects you experienced at the time. And you might even find yourself responding to it only to realize that you're actually not reliving it again, which has happened to me plenty of times. Rumors of projects such as Operation Pegasus have gone under DARPA as attempts of the government to travel time. I'll read some of the mission statement on this site, which I'll leave a link to in the description box. Project Pegasus is a quest begun in 1968 by Andrew D. Basiago when he was serving as a child participant in the U.S. Time-Space Exploration Program. Project Pegasus was the classified defense-related research and development program under the Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, in which the U.S. defense technical community achieved time travel on behalf of the U.S. government. The real Philadelphia experiment. Project Pegasus was launched by the U.S. government to perform remote sensing in time, so that reliable information about past and future events would be provided to the U.S. President, intelligence community, and military. It was expected that 140 American schoolchildren secretly enrolled in Project Pegasus would continue to be involved in time travel when they grew up and went to serve as America's first generation of chrononauts. And that's just some of it. You can read more of it on the website. Within ancient texts, Stories of time travel were told and passed down. A few famous ones are one found in the Mahabharata that tells the story of King Vivyata Kakudimi, who journeys to meet the creator in Hindu mythology Brahma. Although the trip felt like it hadn't lasted long, when he returns he's dumbfounded to find 108 yugas have passed by on Earth, which is equivalent to 400 years. When Kakudimi asked Brahma why this has happened, he explained to him that time were different in different planes of existence. Another story in ancient texts which makes mention of time travel is in the Japanese legend of Urashima Taro, who is said to have visited the underwater palace of dragon god Ryujin. I believe there's a connection to be made with the Marine Kingdom. Going back to the subject of time travel, according to the story, he had been there for 3 days, but when he returned, he had been gone for 300 years. In the Buddhist text Pali Canon, it is written that in the heaven of 30 devas, the place of the gods, time passes at a different pace, where 100 earth years count as a single day for them, and there are many other references. Some examples of time travel in the Bible. People often want to point to the book of Revelations with John when he sees the future play out during the tribulation. Some would say that it's just a mere vision, while others might say he actually traveled and saw the time. Another interesting example would be in Joshua 10:13, which reads, "And the sun stood still and the moon stayed until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and has not go down about a whole day." So considering the sun is a celestial body, and the sun has been used as a measurement of time, just look at the ancient cultures such as the Mayans, when you will see that it's very possible that the sun standing still could potentially mean that time stopped. But this is just mere speculation. Some also believe that the Tower of Babel was not just a tower to heaven, which heaven, it's crazy enough to consider building a tower to heaven, is in another realm. So, heaven itself, I believe, exists outside of time, or in a different time, I should say. Some people who claim to have been time travelers are John Teeter, who claimed to be American soldier from the year 2036 and part of a government time travel program in Florida. However, in the year 2000, after posting outrageous predictions like the Second Civil War in 2004 and so on, his claims of being a time traveler fell flat. Von Helton claimed to have traveled back in time countless times and had people take countless pictures of himself. Charlotte Ann Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain. In this story, 2 schoolteachers visiting the Garden of Versailles in 1901 wandered off, getting lost, and crossed a bridge which led them to a place where they saw a group of people dressed in 1701 garb, including Marie Antoinette. They claimed they experienced a time slip and later returned to their hotel, but the next day the bridge was gone. And I find that interesting because I don't know if anyone else saw this. It was a long time ago on a Fact or Fiction. They talked about how some guy claimed that he went back to the 1700s while he was walking in the woods, I believe, and he opened a cabin door and he was amongst a bunch of people dressed in 1700 clothing. And I don't remember if it might have actually been considered a fact, I don't know, but so itself is kind of outrageous. And then another story I heard on Coast to Coast AM is a woman who claimed, well, a woman and man claimed, her husband had went to the bathroom and he hadn't come back for a long time. She went to check on him. She went downstairs because the bathroom was downstairs, and she asked the officer who was there if he could go check the bathroom. So he did, and he didn't see her husband there. She kept looking around for him. Well, turns out he comes out and she's like, where were you? I was looking all over for you. And he says that he went up the stairs, he didn't see her, he didn't see any of the same surroundings, he saw something else. He walked down it, he sat on the steps for a few minutes, he came back up, and then she was there again. So that's kind of interesting too, because she went down the steps and passed it, yet she didn't see him. Whether they're making up the story, I can't be sure, but I found it interesting about the time slips. Another person who had claimed to have traveled time was Father Pellegrino Ernetti. This man claimed that he had had a device called a chronovisor that allowed him to view time in the past. So he laid claim to have visited ancient Rome, Greece, and even seen Jesus' crucifixion. Of course, on his deathbed, he admitted to have made everything up. Håkan Nordqvist claims he found a tunnel and crawled through it while fixing his sink and went to the future, meeting his 70-year-old self, explaining how he and the older man had a tattoo on the same arm. However, a third person must have taken the pic, and many suspect he's lying. Another person who laid claim to traveling time was Andrew Carlson, who confessed he was from the future and said, in addition to having complete knowledge of our current investment markets, that he knew where Osama bin Laden was hiding and how to curate, all which he would share if allowed to get back to his ship, after he was suspected of suspicious activity after making $350 million between the late 90s and 2002. And of course, another really famous case in the year 1943 in Philadelphia. They were trying to cloak ships by making it invisible to the enemy. Supposedly the ship not only disappeared but teleported to Norfolk from Philadelphia, going back in time for 10 seconds. The result of the experiment went horribly wrong, and when they returned back, crew members were injured horribly. Some fused to bolt holes, others developed mental disorders, a few disappeared completely, and some reported traveling into the future and back. Allegedly, Nikola Tesla, who was the director of engineering and research at Radio Company of America at the time, was involved in the experiment by making all the necessary calculations and drawings, and also providing the generators. However, he wasn't alive when the experiment took place. He died a few months before the experiment. A couple of years back in China, they were stunned to find at the time they thought it was a Swiss ring. It was actually a watch frozen at the time 10:06. Chinese archaeologists allegedly removed the opening of a giant coffin within what was believed to be an undisturbed 400-year-old Queen tomb in Shaanxi County. It was stunning because watches were not around at the time, nor was the Ming Dynasty or Switzerland. Also, scientists had at one point scoured the internet, along with just regular people coming to find this. The interesting thing is that they found people that actually resembled people who lived over a century ago or more past, that look a lot like celebrities that we have today. Some people came up with crazy ideas. They were reincarnated, they were immortal, they were vampires, and some said they were travelers. It could be that they simply just, people tend to look like each other. I'm pretty sure that there was at least one person may have looked like one of us that lived before us and might live after us, but I don't think we have enough time really for that to happen again. But what if they were time travelers? It is an interesting thought. One of the last things I want to draw attention to is, where does God fit in with all of this, and would he allow such a thing to be possible? In 2 Peter 3:8, but beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. This passage here has baffled many as to what it means. Some have taken it to mean that whenever it talks about God creating the earth in 6 days and resting on the seventh, that it means that each day was 1,000 years. I honestly don't believe that to be the case. I do think that each day is literal, although I can see why some would say it is that way. In Psalms 94, for 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it passed, and as a watch in the night. Once again, we see for God, time does not work the same way. Some have taken this to mean he exists outside of time, or that he has a more temporal role in the sense that he was always there and will always be. But he still experiences things with us. Okay, so I want anyone who wants to comment opinion on all of this. But time itself, in my opinion, is an illusion. It's not linear. We as humans perceive it to be linear because we were born into this world. We do go through the motions. We grow up, we experience puberty, we graduate, get married, work, and retire, and die, and so on. It's like a cycle. We celebrate each year of our life, counting the years we've lived. And when one dies, we recall the amount of years on a gravestone and in a eulogy. But in totality, we all die, and we'll all stand before God on a day of judgment. I recently got a chance to see the new movie Lucy, which came out a couple weeks back, and it was packed with symbolism in the Luciferian doctrine. But one thing that really got me was in the end, when she reached 100% of her mental capacity within her brain, she gained complete control of time, enabling her to become a god. She was able to travel back in time to the first woman who they made a primate named after Lucy, which is based off an actual finding in Ethiopia, and she touched the finger of this, like the scene out of E.T., like the painting that Da Vinci made of Adam and God, and she came back to the future and passed on her knowledge by becoming a computer, which represents transhumanism, and then, of course, by going back, representing rewriting history. Lucifer, which is Lucy's nickname, which is the nickname for Lucifer by occultists, was in the garden. He tempted Eve and is credited by the Luciferians as bringing knowledge to man, freeing them. So that when she touched the monkey, and she came back and sacrificed herself, sort of like a Christ-like figure disappearing and being able to be everywhere now, she was omnipresent. When she reached 100%, fulfilling the age-old lie Lucifer always told that if you eat of this fruit that you would become a god. She became one, and it was interesting since she hands the flash drive of information before disappearing to Morgan Freeman's character, which, if you think about it, in the past, he played God in Heaven Almighty, which I feel like what they do a lot of times with these movies is they'll get an actor who played another role and they'll actually use it's more of a subliminal thing that they do to people when they watch these movies. Of course, all this ties back to the whole Saturn worshipping thing and the worship of time, since, especially for the elite, they don't want to die. If they can find a way to live forever, they will. And of course, time travel would be one of their goals. So here's the question. I am still on the fence about whether time travel is possible or not. Here's why. I'm going to say I'm skeptical. If it were possible, then Satan may have tried to go back and alter time or travel to the future to figure out how to win Armageddon, since he was not all-knowing or omnipresent. Some believe that deja vu is actually a result of someone going back in time. We experience a ripple effect from it, because they try to change time, and we can't change time. I believe if time travel were possible, it would be impossible to alter time, since God wouldn't allow it. I do, however, believe that the spiritual realm does not operate on the same clock or on the same rules as we do with time. And this is kind of explains the UFO phenomenon, why some of these orbs, which I believe are fallen angels, they seem to hop in and out of time and dimensions. As time progresses, technology becomes more advanced. Maybe there will be a way to travel to the future or back to the past. However, with all of the secret science experiments going on in fallen angel and beast technology, such mechanisms could exist. However, I do believe God would not allow them once again to change time, which would be a complication. Honestly, I still remain unsure on this topic, but only time will tell. I hope you found this video interesting and the information useful. Please share, pass the word on, get it out there. I hope you have a wonderful week, and thank you for watching.